Hey guys, my name is Nadia Sayapin, and first up, I got to apologize for being AWOL for so long. I've had a few little issues pop up in the last few months. The first one being the camera on my brand new laptop refuses to work, even after deleting it and reinstalling it. So, still haven't figured out that little mystery. The other thing is that, as you may have noticed, there is a different look to this channel. And that is because I changed my author name. I went to Sayapin instead of sticking with Sayer. Let's just say I had some troubles with Meta, and long story short, it became a better idea to rebrand. And I figured if I rebranded, I might as well go underneath a name that I know that nobody else in the world is going to have. So I hope you enjoy the new look. Um, and I am back, ready to keep going with the Rebels. I do have to apologize again for just being absent for so long, but I really like recording on my laptop better. I know the quality comes out more, so we're just going to have to see if this comes out looking kind of weird because, yeah, sorry. I'm going to take a poll later on with you guys. I hope you all answer it. Anyway, The Rebels, Chapter 17. Hey, wake up! I lifted my head, blearily aware of someone talking near me. Then a hand grabbed my injured arm, and I roared awake as they squeezed my bullet graze wound. I lurched upright, snarling. What? Oh, sorry! It was Sirius, snatching her hand back like she'd touched a hot pot. I wondered irritably how long it would take me to get used to this whole new names thing. What do you want? I mumbled, remembering to check next to me. I breathed out, relieved to see Cub still sleeping. It can't be morning yet, can it? I didn't feel like I'd been asleep more than a couple hours. It's not morning. It's snowing. She sounded like she couldn't decide between childish glee and concern, so instead, she channeled both. Snowing? Cool. I flopped back down, already half asleep. Oh, shit! I shot back up. Bad! Damn! You reckon it's gonna stop anytime soon? Nope. Sirius sat back on her haunches. We're about 1,000 feet higher than normal, so we're screwed. Like, it's wet snow at the moment, if that's any better. Wet snow, not dry, slippery and treacherous. We might still have a chance to hide our tracks if we got moving. Get everyone up and loaded. We're getting out while the getting's good. Sirius moved quickly, shaking shoulders and nudging people awake. Not surprisingly, Eleanor woke immediately and quietly. Next to her, Seahorse was groggy, lethargic, and running a fever, but conscious. Eleanor followed behind Sirius, helping calm the girls frightened by the sudden awakening. Sirius had to pull the sleeping bag off Jolly, earning herself dirty looks from Jewel and Kestrel. They probably thought Sirius was cruel. Why are we getting up? Jewel asked. It's snowing, I said shortly, wrapping Cub in the blanket we'd shared and slowly climbing to my feet. Sirius crisscrossed the camp, hiding the decomposable remains of dinner, flinging bones into the bushes and tossing the cut ferns as far as she could. Phoenix chivied the newly awakened, bundled in blankets, into the bus. So what? Jewel complained. What difference does it make? It took me longer to answer than normal, trying to shake my life into my limbs, so Seahorse answered her before I could. Get going, she rasped. You agreed last night that Captain was leading, which means doing as she says. So move! I adjusted Cub in my arms. Reckon none of you know me well enough to take everything I say on face value. Except, the part where you broke us out of Salem? Seahorse muttered sarcastically. So we got enough time for me to explain, I finished quietly. Jewel folded her arms and stared at me belligerently. I sighed. Why was it always the pretty ones who caused the most trouble? Even at the shop, I'd always get sneers and superior looks, and they didn't like dealing with me because I wouldn't give them discounts for having their tits hanging out. Come to think of it, only Jake gave discounts for that. I shifted the toddler uncomfortably. We're leaving now in the hopes of making it back to our base before the snow gets too deep so it'll cover our tracks. That way we can disappear into thin air as far as Steve is concerned. It's a pretty good idea, Jewel said grudgingly. I'm glad you think so. If my tone got any drier, we'd be in a desert. You haven't spent much time in forests, have you? No. It shows. I turned and walked to the bus before I dropped the kid, leaving the girl staring after me. I idly scratched at my cheek as we bumped cautiously down the track, following the bus's bright yellow behind. Is there something on my face? I asked Phoenix and Anansi, who rode in the back of the truck with me. The boy peered at my face closely. Ugh, he said, halfway between curiosity and disgust. You've got something on your shoulder. It's big. And ugly, he added. What? I swiped frantically at my cheek, scratching, but I couldn't find anything. Oh, Anansi suddenly lost interest. Never mind, it's just your head. I tried. I really tried, but I burst out laughing. You little shit! I ended up sitting on the floor, holding my sides, getting strange looks from Phoenix while Anansi grinned proudly. Twerp was living up to his name already. Seriously, I gasped a quarter of a mile later. My cheek really does itch. Well, Phoenix said after a short evaluation, you do have a rash. How'd you get that? I rolled to my side, slowly calming. Must have been that blanket. I thought it felt like wool. Damn sensitive skin, I mumbled more to myself than them. Guess I was too tired to care. Wool always annoyed me so much I never kept it on for long. Now, fan-fucking-tastic. The truck bumped over the road, Dereva driving High Tide riding shotgun. The two girls were of a similar age, and I could see High Tide's hands waving as she talked. River hung out the door of the bus as Sirius drove again. The girls huddled inside whilst freezing air blew around them. The snow came down ever more thickly, and we were forced to slow to a crawl. 2 days ago, I could have walked faster than this. The truck lurched as Dereva shifted it into four-wheel drive, causing those of us in the back to rock. We huddled together with Jolly in between, but eventually the boys' shivering became too much. It wasn't so much the cold as the damp when the snow melted on our clothes. All right, Anansi, Phoenix muttered through clenched teeth. You're making me feel cold. Time for you to go inside. It was the space of a couple heartbeats to lower the boy over the side of the truck, and a quick jog took him to the bus. I could barely see their silhouettes as River gave him a hand into the bus. Me and Phoenix stayed in the back, beanies pulled firmly over our ears, hoods up, scarves wrapped around our faces, gloved hands firmly holding our rifles. The only good thing about it all was that the cold finally numbed my cheek enough that it no longer itched. Call me crazy, I said, muffled by my scarf, but I'd swear that if it wasn't for being wet, it's warmer than last week. You are crazy, Phoenix answered, because we are wet and it's damn cold. The bus slowed even more, the tires unable to cope with the slushy ground, and it was taking everything Sirius had to stay on the track. In Oregon, it didn't rain, but it poured, and it snowed the same way up here. Finally, Sirius stopped. We watched for a moment as she hopped out, searching around the sides of the bus. What you looking for? I asked, curiosity beating out the cold. Chains, she answered shortly, crawling under the bus. Ow! Shit! She wriggled out, sucking her thumb. Bent the nail back, Sirius mumbled around the digit. Stupid tires are nearly bald. Fucking budget cuts. Didn't have time to check everything. Anything useful down there? No, damn it! Frustrated, she pulled off her beanie, beating it against her leg. Found a jack, but no spare tires and no chains. How are you guys doing? You need chains? Nope, I said laconically and pointed down. Got me some nearly new mud tires here. Don't need no chains. Though, I added, smiling and slightly abashed, now that we're talking about it, I may have something buried in the box. Sirius threw up her hands in exasperation, stomping over to throw open my toolbox. She dug around in the back, muttering a stream of less than complimentary things about me. I grinned and shrugged helplessly. What can I say? Getting shot, a new name, and freezing my ass off has made me a little forgetful. Phoenix sniggered. How can you be laughing at a time like this? Jewel angrily stuck her head out of the back door of the bus. People have died! We're stuck in the middle of nowhere. We're hoping we don't get caught, and you three are making jokes! Phoenix, irritated by the shrillness, snapped. What? Are we supposed to sit around crying all the time? I winced. Not the best way to handle that, maybe. Look, kid. I'm not a kid! Jewel reached a higher pitch, if that were possible. No, I guess not. I rubbed a hand down my face, pulling the scarf with it. Jewel, if there's one thing we've managed to learn, it's that at times like this, when shit just keeps happening, you've only really got three ways of looking at this. You can either laugh, cry, or get angry. Ain't nothing to get angry at. Crying's no good, so we might as well laugh. Later, when it's safe, we'll cry. Make any sense? Well, she began snappily, and my heart sank. No good ever came from a sentence started like that. We've got two little girls in here who've just lost their mother. The least you could do is show some sympathy. Save me from self-righteous know-it-alls. I rolled my eyes. I've got some understanding of how those girls feel. How could you be so insensitive as to say that? Oh, for fuck's sake! I snapped, holding onto my temper by a thread. Shut up and listen to people for once. Everybody here has lost family and friends. I hate telling people not to be stupid, but damn it, stop being an idiot and use your brain for something other than being offended all the damn time. Now sit your ass down and contemplate the fact that there are people in this world beyond you. Jewel retreated sullenly, lower lip poking out. Seahorse gave me a thumbs up through a broken window before sinking back down. How old do you think she is? Alex muttered as we got the chains laid out. I moved slowly, but having my feet on solid ground let me finally stretch properly. My leg wasn't having to make constant adjustments. 3, Sirius volunteered. 3-year-olds have got more brains, I replied. I say 7. She's 18, Eleanor told us quietly. I hadn't even noticed her stepping out of the bus. Phoenix rolled her eyes. God, I hate it when people run around policing everybody's language and still behave like that. From what I've gathered, her parents were involved in everything from pro-life to animal cruelty. I understand they were particularly against farmers. Oh my God, I moaned as we stepped back to let Sirius drive onto the chains. As if we didn't have enough problems with that type before, we're saddled with one now. She hadn't yet been used, Eleanor said delicately as we started buckling the chains on. I grunted as I tugged my side. The chains were barely large enough for the bus's tires, and it took 2 of us to put one on. Tonight was supposed to have been her introduction, and, well, she has blinders on. I don't think it's sunk in yet what the others went through. We'll go through, I said quietly. Phoenix is barely holding it together, even if she's been doing better since we got out of our house. Acting against Steve has really helped, though we haven't had enough sleep to tell if it's done anything about the nightmares. Then we'll just have to make sure they have a safe place, and we'll get some therapy sessions going. Eleanor stepped back, wiping her hands clean with snow. Having others around who've experienced the same thing helps. We were dead on our feet by the time we rolled into the bunker, but it was worth it. Snow filled in our tracks within an hour, and the knot of anxiety in my chest slowly unraveled. The women piling out of the bus looked so disheartened at the sight of our bunker that I couldn't help laughing a little. Except Seahorse. She looked happy enough. Maybe she felt like she was coming home. Anansi raced to be the first to the door, throwing it open with a flourish, and handing a lit candle to the first girl to reach it, Fox, bowing her in. "Welcome to our super cool hideout," he announced. Dereva hurried in, returning quickly with her arms full of sheets. While Anansi got the others inside and situated, Eleanor, Sirius, Dereva, Phoenix, and I got the bodies wrapped, and we carefully carried them inside, laying them in the utility closet near the entrance. Tomorrow we'd dig the graves. As the newbies saw how spacious the place was, they slowly brightened. Jolly, that little wonder worker, showed them to empty rooms that they could take and began collecting mattresses from the barracks. "Clothes, kiddo!" I yelled down the hall towards the racket. "They need clothes." "Right!" His voice bounced back. I rubbed my face, trying to get circulation going. "We'll need more toilets, too." "Yeah, why don't you get the stove going?" Sirius suggested. "It's something you could actually handle." I flipped her off, and she continued. "We can't risk you getting an infection, too, since we don't have enough antibiotics for you and her." She waved to where Seahorse was laid out on a couch in the common area. "What do you mean, more toilets?" Eleanor asked, interest piqued. The two of them walked down the hall, Sirius's hands moving as she told Eleanor what they were about. We'll need to take apart some bed frames, she said, just before they disappeared around a corner. You and me for food, Phoenix faced me squarely. Yep, we need snow for water. Lots of water. In surprisingly short order, people began filing back into the common room, looking for warmth, food, and companionship. Phoenix began dishing up the rough stew we'd made from canned and dried goods, along with some dried rabbit meat. While they eat, I told Phoenix, I want to see about a place for a cemetery. I'm thinking that meadow to the south of us. You gonna check the map? Yep. About time that useless room did some work. What useless room? Eleanor said from right behind me. I had to be thankful for my brother Sean in that moment. He liked to sneak up on me and try to scare me. It would be so undignified if I jumped and squeaked right now. My heart racing, I turned slowly to face the other woman. We've got some kind of command room with all the latest tech and gadgets, I replied to Eleanor's query, keeping my face bland. As you know, 90% of that shit is useless. We can't even burn it. But there are a few maps on the walls, and one of them is geological. We've got types of soil and at what depth rock is, plus altitudes. Anansi likes looking at it. Yep, the boy said as he passed us with his bowl of stew. May I come see? Eleanor asked. I'd like to know more. I nodded and waved for her to follow me. We threaded through the girls, finding seats at the tables, conversation filling the air. I hadn't realized how quiet we'd been until this moment. Soft laughter, chatter, and occasional tears all filled the room. Kestrel and Amana were taking care of Leo's kids, making sure they had comfort, support, food, anything. Those little girls had lost their mother, but from the looks of it, they'd at least have the love and support of a whole bunch of aunts and one uncle. Can I ask you something? I asked as we walked down the hall. You just did. Eleanor smiled. A personal one. Ah. Eleanor bit her lip, the first sign of nervousness I'd seen from her. Yes, of course. Aren't you worried Steve will target your friends since you're going by your real name? Ah, yes. We walked in silence while she thought. I can't say I have friends anymore. They turned their backs on me shortly after the invasion. I kept my mouth shut, waiting for her to continue. I'd rather this didn't go beyond us, Eleanor said eventually. As long as it doesn't impact others' well-being, no problem. I kept my voice non-committal. Seemed to me that Eleanor needed to talk, but was afraid to. Anything that can point to me will lead to my daughter, Anna. The fuck? I bit my tongue, questions bottling up in my throat. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. Storm and Amana said used to be good friends with my daughter. They practically lived at our house. Amana said's parents didn't have the resources to care for her, and Storms were neglectful, bordering on abusive. So I raised them nearly side by side with Anna. I hadn't realized how much Anna resented it until the invasion. Or at least, that's what I think. Anna decided the best way to look out for herself was with the North Koreans. She deliberately seduced one, and the next thing I know, soldiers were at my door, marching us away. I only saw her once when she told me she would let me keep watching over them and had me appointed as a whorehouse madam. Tears clogged Eleanor's throat, and I opened the door to the command center silently, ushering her in. I don't know what happened, where I went wrong, but Anna used the soldiers to make it very clear to our neighbors that I was collaborating with the enemy. I tried to see my oldest friend once. She spit in my face, and I had to run. I think they would have killed me if I'd stayed. What about Amana and Storm? When Anna realizes you're alive, won't she target their families? No. Eleanor shook her head, wiping away the tears. I implied that they died. It wasn't difficult. So many girls didn't survive the abuses. What do you think they'll do to her? I try not to think about it. Keeping my own name isn't so much about that. I guess it's about redemption, as silly as that sounds. I used to be a woman with a good reputation. And now? She covered her eyes, shoulders shaking gently. I watched two younger Wonderful young women that I helped raise, that I love as daughters, be degraded, hurt, and broken, essentially at my daughter's hands. And I couldn't do anything to help them. What kind of person does that make me? Sometimes, I said slowly, thinking it through for once, it's harder to watch others be hurt than to bear the abuse ourselves. We feel helpless, but Eleanor, you did help them. They're still alive, and now that they're here, they have a chance to heal. We'll do our damnedest to give them the skills to protect themselves, I promise. The vehemence in my voice surprised even me. I'd never believed in a cause before, but it seems like I finally found one. Yo, that place gonna work? Sirius called when Eleanor and I walked back into the common room. Meadow's a bit shallow, I said, but better than anything else around. We'll just have to go old school and gather rocks to top them with. What will that do? Fox, the redhead, wanted to know. Keep the animals from digging up the bodies, I answered. They used this method back in the day when they couldn't bury their dead very deep. Have you been somewhere like that? High Tide asked. I nearly panicked at being the center of so much attention, pinching my arm to stay grounded. I just read a lot. I breathed a sigh of relief when Eleanor called order and invited us to tell them more about what we'd done for fun the last couple months. We gathered near Seahorse so she could participate, maybe offer an opinion or two as our resident person who knows something about shit. Do you know the rank of that soldier? Seahorse asked at one point. No. I glanced at Phoenix and Sirius. You guys get a look? I was too busy. Phoenix bit her lip, forehead wrinkling in thought. There was a gold thing on his sleeve with a red stripe and some stars in a triangle. How many stars? Seahorse couldn't sit up, but she managed to radiate intensity pretty well. 4? And the red line went through the triangle, not around it. Seahorse relaxed with a grunt. That's like a captain. Wonder why he was following you. I pursed my lips, looking up. I think he wanted a private harem instead of one he had to share, Sirius said dryly. Oh. How did you find this place? Eleanor looked around the room. You didn't tell us that. Rumors, a general distrust of the government, and a dash of good luck. I waved a hand airily, brushing away the hours of discomfort and fear, the 2 weeks of my feet healing, and the trauma of losing family. The newly rescued gave me puzzled looks. What? Hasn't anyone ever heard the rumors of the natural disaster bunkers the government was building? I made air quotes as I talked. I heard something, Seahorse admitted, but I thought it was just the usual end-of-the-world crap going around again. Oh, my brothers spent time driving up here, Sirius volunteered, and they saw a few things, like soldiers where there shouldn't be any. And you also tend to notice when they disappear, I finished. What do you mean, disappear? Seahorse struggled to sit up, alarmed. Eleanor kept the injured woman down with one hand and no effort, shaking her head in warning. Yeah, about 6 months before the invasion, Sirius continued the story, the boys saw soldiers. We get here, nada. After 2 years, they just packed up and left. Did they? Seahorse was so agitated she could barely catch her breath. Were there any devices left here? I shook my head, a sinking feeling in my gut. The others did likewise, except Anansi. Oh yeah! The kid bounced up. I found something! It kept blocking the front door, so I moved it. I found more scattered around. I've been collecting them. He ran off to get one, unable to keep still in his excitement. He returned quickly with a little yellow block that looked like modeling clay, with a small plastic box attached to it. He handed it to me, and I passed it to Seahorse, who took it gingerly. How many of those have you got? She asked the boy. I don't know, 20, 25, something like that. Seahorse went pale and giggled, the edge of hysteria plain to hear. My heart sank. This was bad. This woman had been kidnapped, raped, tortured, then rescued by the seat of her pants in an extended firefight and shot, all without raising an eyebrow. I was very worried. Oh, God, she wheezed between breaths. 20 to 25? Anansi nodded. This is enough Semtex to level this entire area plus some. They were probably rigged to go off in the case of someone unauthorized tried to open the front door. Everything would have exploded and taken you all with it, she said bluntly for the tired and confused. Ah, yep, it was exactly as bad as I'd thought. So we should all be very grateful the electronics were fried? Seahorse nodded. Yeah, I guess the detonators were broken too. Your lack of concern never ceases to amaze me, Eleanor said dryly. Are you sure you have blood? You tied my arm up, I pointed out. Besides, we busted in here 2 months ago. I've had time to get used to the fact that we haven't blown up. I wish, Seahorse said, lying back down, breathing heavily. You weren't so sarcastic about the military. It was my home for 8 years. Hard not to be when they build a barracks in the middle of nowhere with a massive-ass armory of confiscated weapons, Seahorse said wryly. No! Seahorse hitched... Fuck that one up. Hard not to be when they build a barracks in the middle of nowhere with a massive-ass armory of confiscated weapons, Phoenix said wryly. Inflection better that time? No! Seahorse hitched forward in a panic. No, there can't be any weapons here. They were destroyed. Kestrel, sitting near her head on the next couch, leaned over to restrain her while Eleanor bent close, murmuring. Get Lucy, I instructed Jolly. The boy took off like a shot, then quickly returned carrying the rifle we'd found on our first day here. The effect on Seahorse was devastating. Her face crumpled as she stared at the inscription. All my love, Lucy, tears starting in her eyes. They told us these things were being made into paper clips, things like that. They told us we'd be making people safer. Why did they keep them? What were the guns being kept here for? We had active service members on U.S. soil, not a base, I said sardonically, in a secret underground bunker that can comfortably house 200 with a ginormous armory full of illegal weapons. I wouldn't care to speculate. Seahorse closed her eyes. The girls around us were deathly silent, watching the play intently. I wondered how many of them were awake enough to pay attention. I was dead on my feet. They were preparing for an invasion, Storm breathed. Considering they buggered off before one hit? My voice was so dry it would have been right at home in Death Valley. They weren't figuring on invading another country, not based near tracks that can't take large vehicles 10 months of the year. Fuck 'em! Phoenix interrupted our doomsday talk. They ditched us and haven't bothered to come back. Who cares about them? They left us. Fuck 'em. We'll save ourselves. I grinned at her. Phoenix may be a pain in the ass, but she had a way of hitting the nail on the head. That is the point, ain't it? Unbelievably, after we left to let Seahorse rest, the girls decided to explore, with Anansi and Dereva playing tour guides. I heard voices echoing through the tidy mass of tunnels, feet scraping the ground as they left the smooth concrete nearest the entrance for the rougher stone of the deeper passageways. I don't know what they thought. Most of the rooms were relatively boring, uniformly sized spaces that could have been used as officer quarters, meeting rooms, or storage. It was impossible to tell. They gathered for a while in the useless room full of dead computers. There was a large table in the center with a 3D map across it. The map was a close-up of Oregon, Northern California, and Southern Washington. I totally understood their fascination with the map. I'd spent hours in there myself looking over that map from every angle. They were all banned from the armory. Eleanor and Seahorse agreed that all the girls needed time to heal emotionally and receive training before they'd be allowed anywhere near guns and shit with pointy ends. They thoroughly explored the gym, shooting range, and barracks, but finally stopped at the garage. They didn't have a choice. The large bay doors were operated electrically and frozen shut. Sometimes in the evening, Anansi and me would sit down and try to figure out how they could be opened. The boy said he got ideas from these tinker toys his grandpa had gotten him a few years ago. Well, he'd build structures with the toys, scan them into his computer, and run simulations to see how they would perform. I'd asked him once if he'd wanted to be an architect, and he went silent. I'm sorry, I'd said awkwardly. Bad idea to ask a kid about a future that didn't exist. The garage walls were unfinished rock, and the tunnels around them were rough, barely high enough for a tall woman, i.e., me, to walk through. Except for that one spot where the ceiling dips down. I hit my head on it several times. We couldn't break the rock, and we were unable to make padding stick to it, so I just walked the entire thing with my head pulled in like a turtle, praying it made me short enough to avoid another headache. "Why don't you go look at the doors from the outside?" Jewel asked when Anansi mentioned the sealed garage doors, nose in the air as if the answer should be obvious to a blind man. "Because," I heard Anansi respond, "the tunnels are twisty, compasses don't work down here, and we can't find the stupid things." "Well, maybe you're not looking hard enough." I pursed my lips to hide a grin. "You know what?" he said brightly. "You're right. Why didn't we think of that? We should just look harder. How could we be so dumb? Tell you what, why don't you show us how tomorrow?" A quiet snort just ahead let me know I wasn't the only one keeping an eye on the kids. Sirius walked silently back, shoulders shaking from suppressed laughter. "The sarcasm is strong in this one," I murmured as she passed me. Her shoulders jumped with a fresh round of laughter as she clamped a hand over her mouth to keep it in. Between the mountainscape, the layout of the tunnels, and a few other factors, unless we knew exactly where to look and what we were looking for, finding those doors from the outside was virtually impossible. Maybe if we had a couple years and plenty of free time, we could do it. The decorators of the map room had left out one critical piece of information: the blueprint of the bunker and how it corresponded to the outside. Damn useless room. Even the air vents were carefully hidden. Going by the fact that there were levels and even the lower levels had vents, we figured it filled the mountain. The two vents we found gave us some useful information. A fine steel mesh covered the vents at ground level where it was sunk into concrete, carefully disguised. Inside, the vents were open so that even if an enemy dropped a grenade, it would explode in the corridor, preventing it from causing too much damage to the bunker's structure. All right, thus ends chapter 18. So, real quick, I had an idea that I can probably record on my laptop, but I would just do like a picture instead of, my face. What do you guys think of that? Would you rather look at a pretty picture rather than this making random faces as I read? Let me know in the comments, okay? Bye.